Hello, everybody, and happy new year. Welcome to the PT on Ice Daily Show. My name is Christina Prevett. I am one of our division leads in our older adult division, and I'm pretty excited to be able to talk to you guys on New Year's Day. It is always a time, hopefully, of renewed energy, maybe a little bit of motivation, and a lot of reflection on, am I super excited for 2024 to be out the window? Am I excited about 2025? What lessons did I learn in 2024 to bring to 2025? And what am I hoping to be able to say I have achieved when I am looking at this time next year? And so for today's podcast episode, I thought that I would talk about us all as old people in training. My PhD is in geriatric rehab. I think a lot about longevity. And as a person in their mid 30s, I think about, how am I setting myself up for success in my 30s so that I can be a really active grandma in their 60s or a really active great grandma in their 80s. And so that's where I thought that we would go today, is to do a little bit of an old person in training report card, a bit of a reflective exercise on ourselves and our longevity, not thinking about, never eating chocolate again or trying to lose 5 pounds. Like, I don't want us to go there. I want us to think about health and longevity and setting ourselves up for success for our future. If you're working with older adults, you see a lot of people that are feeling like they don't have good self-reported health. And so how are we going to stop that? And what a lot of people don't really want to recognize, or it can be really difficult for us to think about, is that our aging experience is really a health report of all of the decisions that we made up until that point, right? If we think about a person's aging experience, it's really three things. It's our genetics, and we tend to put a lot of stress on our genetics, but we're starting to learn a lot about epigenetics and how we are able to nurture our DNA so that it can express more positively or more negatively. It is our environment, and some of that we can't control, like pollution, etc. And it's our lifestyle factors. And it's the accumulated effort that we make day in and day out from when we were born to now that is our health report card when we are older. And the saying is, the best time to start was 10 years ago, and the best time to start is today. And on New Year's Day, I really want to jump into that. So, if we are thinking about most or many people's aging experience, right? As they get older, they go through muddy times in their life, stresses start to accumulate, life gets busy, and our lifestyle factors tend to take a backseat. You know that we are very big on taking our meds, which is around stress management, exercise, nutrition, sleep, and social connectedness. If we are thinking about our life right now, I want us to do a report card of how we think our aging experience is going to be in 30 years based on what we are putting into our buckets from a lifestyle factor today. Okay. So I posted a systematic review and meta-analysis a couple of weeks ago that was saying that, less than 20% of individuals hit the exercise guidelines. If you are over the age of 65, that goes from 20 to 13. If you report that your self-rated health is fair, so not great, but fair, that drops to 8%. And if you say your self-rated health is poor, and this is all age categories, only 5% of people hit our exercise guidelines. And so we really want to think not just about our reactive sick care system, but how do we put in this preventative space, no matter where along the life continuum you are. So if we're going to try and kick that in the butt, and we are thinking about our own aging experience, we need to be reflective on, where do we have the most room for growth? And it might not be in the exercise buckets, right? It might be somewhere else. So here's where we're going to go. I want you all to think right now about your exercise bucket. We'll start there. Okay. In 2025, are we keeping our heart healthy enough to be able to go up and down stairs when we are 80? Are we keeping our legs strong enough to do that same task? If we are thinking about our retirement and we want to travel, like there's so much that we want to do from a travel perspective. Are we putting our fitness buckets? Are we building those fitness buckets as much as we can? And that's not saying you have to be like a competitive CrossFitter or a marathon runner. Like you can do all those things. But I'm just meaning putting in effort every day to maintain or improve your fitness. And that can be like you guys have seen it at our courses. That can be 10, 12 minutes, right? From warm up to cool down. If you go to MMOA Live, it's about 15 to 20 minutes and everybody is sweating and having a good time. I'm going to call it a good time. And at the end of our course, right? So are you putting in the steps? Where are you relative to the exercise guidelines, right? Some people are really good on the resistance training part. Some people are really good on the aerobic part. Some people need to get a little bit more of the others. And so if you were to rate yourself from an A to an F, where would you be in the exercise bucket? That's step one, because that's what we're in rehab, right? So we're kind of used to talking in the movement space. Number two is the nutrition space. There is so much misinformation in the nutrition space. Like there are a lot of people who are fighting misinformation. There's a lot of things that can be very confusing. But I think if we step back, it's are we getting enough water in our day? Are we eating enough fruits and vegetables? And are we prescribing to a relatively healthy diet where we're limiting as much as we can ultra processed foods? And if we're looking at the data with respect to mitigating chronic disease, it's the Mediterranean diet. Like over and over and over again, the Mediterranean diet has reigned supreme when it comes to our nutrition. And this is probably the hardest one. It's the hardest one for me. I do not get as many fruits and vegetables as I need to. And that is something that if I rate myself, I would probably be closer to an A on the exercise bucket, but I'd probably be like a B minus or a C on the nutrition side. And so for me in 2025, one of my intentions is to be very mindful of my nutrition and not take things away, never say never always, but to be very intentional about having vegetables more often or more frequently throughout the day. So where would you rate on the nutrition part? And then what we know, I talk a lot about geriatric pelvic health, but like it can be a really big predisposing factor if you've been constipated for 20 years for having a lot of problems with your bowel and bladder in older adulthood. So nutrition is just super huge and it can be very pro-inflammatory or anti-inflammatory and has a big role in the eventual development of different chronic diseases. So nutrition is number two. Number three is our sleep. Now, sleep that is within our level of control. I have two littles. They're 3 and 5. My husband had to get up last night with my 3-year-old because he was trying to walk to our room and ended up walking into his sister's closet and bumping his head. Like he was awakened, and that is just the nature of being a parent. And a lot of people who are going through menopause, they can have sleep disturbances, et cetera, et cetera. But to the best of your knowledge, how much effort or intention are you putting into getting good sleep? Are you staying up till 11:30 watching the news and then you're all riled up and you're having a hard time sleeping? Are you having caffeine too late in the day and it's making it hard for you to go to sleep, right? When you look at your report card and look at that relative to exercise and nutrition, is sleep actually the variable that you need to focus on most, right? Because getting good sleep is that recovery part. It's going to help stave off musculoskeletal pain. It's going to help our older adults feel energy in the morning because fatigue and lethargy is a big issue in our older adult population, especially with the high amount of chronic disease on board. And it's definitely something that we want to think about. So we got exercise, nutrition, and sleep. These next two are probably the ones that when I do my wellness scan with my older adults are the ones that they have the most difficulty answering. So the fourth one is stress, right? So where are you in terms of stress? And for me, this is the one that I had put the most amount of intention into in 2024, and I'm going to continue putting effort in 2025. Now, it is not realistic to say that our life is without stress, right? At any age or stage, stress happens. And there is some stress that is within our control, right? If we overcommit ourselves, we're kind of stressing ourselves out unnecessarily. But there are other things like a parent getting sick or a kid getting sick that are not within our control. And so it isn't necessarily the mitigating of like be less stressed or stop stressing about things. Maybe it's like stressing the small stuff and trying to only worry about the things that are within our control. But where are we from a stress perspective from managing stress when it's there? Like the question that I ask is yes, how would you describe your stress on a scale of 0 to 10 or low, moderate, high? But the next step is when you are stressed, do you have good strategies to mitigate stress when it's high? Right? And so for me in 2024, that has been cold plunging, leaning in more to long steady state aerobics because that helps me out a lot more when my body is stressed. Sometimes I don't need the high intensity interval training. I need the long steady, euphoria of running. I get the euphoria. I've also started journaling, right? And that helps me get my emotions out. And so it's not necessarily that we're going to be able to avoid all stress. That's not a realistic goal, but it's like, can you manage that stress? Because we're seeing a lot of individuals in their 30s and 40s have cardiovascular incidents like myocardial infarction. They're sitting on, subclinical to clinical amounts of hypertension. And then when they get into their 60s, they're having stints and cardiovascular surgeries rather early in life because of this accumulated stress on their system. So it's not about removing stress. It's saying how well do you manage stress? And if I look at our report card, exercise, nutrition, sleep, stress, and the next one's going to be social connectedness. I think the stress card for most people who are in messy middles of their life, between late 20s and late 40s, raising kids, building, professional lives, having dogs, like whatever that means for you, that stress management piece is sometimes the most difficult and the one that may be detracting the most from your health, even above or beyond exercise. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, social connectedness. What I have found in my own life is that because myself and all of my friends are in the messy middle of life, sometimes we suck at staying connected with each other, or we think that keeping up to date with people on Facebook or Instagram is sufficient to drive social connectedness. That answer is no. And then as we get older, right, we experience grief. People die. Like I had my grandmother and my godmother pass away in the last couple of years. Those were big parts of my social network that are just gone. And one, was her time, the other was gone way too early. And it has made me reflect a lot on my social connectedness and my feeling of loneliness as a person in their mid 30s. Do I feel like I have not a lot of connections, but strong connections? Am I leaning in to those relationships? Am I messaging people when I'm thinking about them to tell them that I'm thinking about them? And am I taking that time for social connectedness, or am I a lot more isolated than I thought? Like if something was to happen to me, who would be that person that I would immediately text to try and, talk through it? Do I have that person? And of course we have our spouse and our immediate family unit, but I think it's important to have that reflection on, are we connecting to our friends that we've had for a really long time, that we've shared life experiences with, if they're also willing to put that energy in. And so kind of reflecting on where are you A to F on reaching out to those networks and saying, hey, like I got you if you need anything. How are you doing? And I think in 2024, I did a little bit better. I still have room to grow. I'm probably in the B camp for that, but it's definitely something that I'm thinking about for 2025. So kind of going full circle, I want to know, where are you with your old person in training report card? Like, where are you today to set yourself up for success in your 70s? Like, I want that group of friends that is like Grace and Frankie, that is like the Golden Girls, that is like, the book club, like those social groups that I have with women and men in my 70s and 80s, because I have really cherished that social growth over many, many years. So if you could kind of go and rate yourself from A to an F, where would you sit? what is the one of those five or more than one that maybe needs more of your attention in 2025? A little bit more of your energy in 2025. We talk about professional goals all the time. I got those too. But I'm definitely thinking about longevity, and it's not losing 5 pounds. It's not sticking to some really strict diet. It's I really want to live well in my 70s and 80s. And I'm going to take the time to put that energy in today. All right. I hope you all found that helpful. Happy New Year to you all. If you are looking to get into our MMOA live material, we have level 2 starting on the 8th. If you have already taken level 1, if you have not taken level 1, you have to jump into level 1 first. That one starts on January 12th. We are currently updating the content and format for level 1. So if you have been on the fence about jumping in, you're going to have the most updated material as of January 12th. We are in the trenches of research to make sure that all of our concepts are as research up to date as possible. If you are looking to get into our live courses, we have a ton coming up in 2025. I encourage you to jump into MMOA Digest. In that email at the very bottom, there's going to be a list of all of our courses coming up over the next 6 to 8 months. And then you can jump into whichever course fits your fancy, is closest to you, or is in a place that you want to visit. Happy New Year, everyone. I'm going to be doing a lot of reflection today with friends and family. I hope you all had a wonderful New Year's Eve. Hopefully you're feeling okay this morning. I did not indulge and I was not up till midnight. So I'm feeling pretty good and easy breezy today, but hope you all had fun and we will talk to you all soon.